Bera, who is the longest-serving Indian-American congressman in the House of Representatives, is joining us. Mr. Bera, thank you so much. Congressman, it's almost certain that you will win California's 6th district. So should I be congratulating you now or wait for the results?
We always want to wait for the results, but I feel pretty confident about where we are.
Okay, so tell me, what have you really worked out that is giving you this confidence? Of course, given your experience and how close this election is turning out to be.
Now, obviously, for my race, I have a better district and an easier district. But at the top of the ticket with the presidential campaign, having gone to some of the states that are being contested, I think Vice President Harris is in a good position. But now it's just about the field campaign, getting people to vote and cast their ballots. And I think that's a place that we do it better than the Republicans. So cautiously optimistic, but this will be a close race at the presidential level.
Okay, actually, you've put it rather well that it has to be cautiously optimistic at this stage. But Congressman, this is your 6th consecutive term. And if you win, and you are also the senior most and the longest serving Indian American congressman in the House of Representatives. So that certainly is a rare feat.
It is. So that's the longest tenure in United States history. What we affectionately call ourselves as a Samosa caucus. I think all 5 members will get reelected, and potentially, we'll add another Indian American in Virginia as well as Arizona. So you might see the Samosa caucus grow to 7 members.
This election has been full of emotive issues. But would you say any point which could perhaps be a turning point, which was perhaps a turning point when you look back at this entire campaign?
I think that the majority of voters know that if they're voting for Vice President Harris or former President Donald Trump, but there's a small handful, maybe 10% of the electorate that still is undecided. What it does look like is those individuals are breaking towards Vice President Harris, largely because we've seen her talk about the core issues: economy, the cost of food, the future and the security of the country. So I think those issues are resonating, and we really have seen an unconventional campaign from former President Trump. So I think the late-breaking vote is going in Vice President Harris's direction.
And Vice President Kamala Harris also made an outreach towards the Arab Americans because, and that happened in the last 48 hours. Why do you think this crucial constituency, which was almost like a captive voter of the Democrats, turned away from the Democrats?
I think a lot of people are distressed with what they're seeing in the Middle East, in Gaza, some of the loss of innocent life. And I think there is a real desire to get to a ceasefire, get humanitarian aid there, and then try to create a context of peace and security, both for the Israeli people as well as the Palestinian civilians. I do think Vice President Harris is trying to send that message there, but I think there's some frustration that it's taking much longer to get that ceasefire done. That said, I do think within the Arab American community, they also saw the first thing that former President Trump did, which was the Muslim ban in terms of immigration. So, I think at the end of the day, I think they will support Vice President Harris, but that has been an area that we've been working on and a population we've been trying to reach out to.
So do you think that it has been an area of concern, particularly given how President Joe Biden's foreign policy has been that of completely backing Benjamin Netanyahu?
I think that has been an area. And again, I think Vice President Harris, has been taking a harder line on Prime Minister Netanyahu. I'm disappointed with some of the things that Prime Minister Netanyahu's done. I do wish we could get to a ceasefire in a context of peace and security in the region. That isn't the direction that Prime Minister Netanyahu's gone. And again, I think Vice President Harris will take a slightly different approach than President Biden.
And there is a great degree of fear what if the outcome is otherwise, not really in favor of Donald Trump. We have seen how events played out 4 years ago. There have been barricading, fencing which is happening outside White House and at other prominent locations?
Obviously, we're very worried about what happens immediately after the election tomorrow. We don't want to see a repeat of what happened 4 years ago. We don't want to see a repeat of January 6th. Again, hopefully, cooler heads will prevail. I expect former President Trump to continue doing his agitation, but I think we're in a different place this go around. I think folks were not prepared with what they saw 4 years ago. I do think the country understands that there could be some divisiveness immediately after the election.
These elections have been one of the most polarizing elections in American history, of course, one of the most bitterly contested as well. Is there a sense that because it could go either ways, the safety, security, and the larger issue of inclusive America is under question?
I do think this is a very polarizing election. It's going to be a very close election. I would hope, as we have done in the past and previous elections, after the election, we're able to come together as a country and unite. That may not be the case. That may fall on us as members of Congress and other senior elected officials to try to heal the wounds of this country. But it's not unique. You see these polarized elections in the United Kingdom and other places, and just might be a transition point that we are at in the United States, but also in the world.
Okay, Congressman Bera, of course, the effort, as you said, will be to ensure maximum voter turnout, to ensure that your own voters turn to polling booths. What about fence sitters? Are there any at this last hour? And are efforts being made to reach out to them as well?
Yeah, I mean, this is about getting as many people to vote as possible. And we've already seen over 60 million people have already cast their ballots. So a large portion of the electorate has already voted. I expect we'll see record high voter turnout. People are engaged and enthusiastic. In democracy, that's what you want. You see that in Indian democracy, and I think we see that here in the American democracy. Again, I think this will be a very close election. I think it'll be a fair election, and I would hope, regardless of who wins, that the other side concedes and there's a fair transition of power and peaceful.
Is America really on the cusp of history? You have not had a woman president, and let's not forget that even in 2016, when Donald Trump won, he was facing a woman counterpart from the Democratic Party. What is the sense right now?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I do think we'll see a historic election. We'll see a historic first with the first female president of the United States, the first South Asian president of the United States, the first female African-American president of the United States. So, fingers are crossed, and I'm going to do everything I can between now and the end of election night tomorrow night to get those votes out.
My last question to you: how do you see India-US ties taking shape based on who is in the White House?
As someone who is the senior member of the Foreign Affairs Committee that has jurisdiction over Asia, I think regardless of who's in the White House, you'll continue to see strong U.S.-India partnership, economic partnership, security partnership, and I think you're continuing to see the Indian American diaspora rise politically in America.
All right, Congressman Amit Bera, thank you so much for joining us.